What if the fairy tale romance that promised Amy Roloff a fresh start was never as perfect as it seemed? For years, Little People, Big World fans saw Chris Marek as the hero of Amy's story, the man who stepped in when her heart was broken, the partner who gave her the kind of love she had long been searching for after her painful split from Matt Roloff. Viewers cheered when Amy found happiness again, believing Chris was her safe haven. But behind the curtain of romance, questions began to surface. Who really is Chris Marek? What secrets from his past have been quietly swept under the rug? And why are whispers now emerging that Amy and Chris themselves admitted, "We can't live like this anymore"? Tonight, we uncover the side of Chris and Amy's marriage that the cameras never dared to reveal. From shocking claims about Chris's past to the emotional toll it took on Amy, this is not the love story fans thought they knew. This is the dark truth that left many wondering, was Amy ever truly safe in Chris's arms? Or was their second chance at love built on fragile ground? Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For Roloff family latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. When Amy Roloff's decades-long marriage to Matt Roloff came to a heartbreaking end, it left fans wondering if she would ever find love again. The divorce wasn't just the closing of a chapter, it was the unraveling of a life she had built for over 30 years. Amy openly shared her pain on Little People, Big World, letting viewers see the loneliness, the frustration, and the uncertainty of what came next. For a woman who had poured her heart into her family, the farm, and her marriage, the idea of starting over felt daunting. But Amy has always had resilience in her spirit. Slowly, she began to open her heart to the possibility of love again. And when Chris Marek entered the picture, fans could almost feel a collective sigh of relief. Here was a man who seemed steady, patient, and genuinely devoted to her. Chris wasn't part of her past drama. He represented something fresh, a new chance at happiness. For many viewers, he became the symbol of Amy's second chance, a rock she could lean on after years of feeling overshadowed and dismissed. Their love story unfolded like a fairy tale at first. Dates, adventures, laughter, and the kind of quiet companionship Amy had long craved. Fans rallied behind them, posting words of encouragement and celebrating every milestone. From engagement parties to the big wedding day, it felt like Amy had finally stepped into the happiness she deserved. After so much heartache, she was glowing again, and viewers loved seeing her smile. But as with many relationships, not everything was picture-perfect behind the scenes. Small moments, little exchanges that most would overlook, began to plant seeds of doubt. At times, Chris's words or actions seemed to rub Amy the wrong way. Their different personalities, her openness and emotional sensitivity, his quieter and more reserved demeanor, sometimes clashed in subtle but noticeable ways. Fans who paid close attention began to wonder, was this love story as flawless as it appeared, or were there cracks forming in the foundation of their relationship? These early signs didn't erase the hope Amy found in Chris, but they hinted at complexities that would later come to the surface. For now, though, the world was watching Amy Roloff step into what looked like her happily ever after. As the glow of Amy's second chance at love continued to shine on camera, whispers from Chris Marek's past began to resurface. At first, they were nothing more than faint rumors, unconfirmed chatter online about his business dealings, past relationships, and even financial troubles. But slowly, these stories began to gain momentum, spreading through fan forums and social media, where longtime viewers of Little People, Big World were quick to notice any red flags. Some alleged that Chris hadn't always been as successful in real estate as he appeared to be on the show. Speculation circulated about old business ventures that ended poorly, financial risks that left scars, and debts that weren't widely known. While nothing was officially confirmed, the very idea that Amy, who had built her entire life on hard work, resilience, and trust, might be tied to a man carrying unresolved baggage was enough to stir unease among her supporters. It wasn't just money, though. Former acquaintances claimed that Chris's dating history wasn't as clean as fans might have expected. Stories emerged of relationships that ended abruptly, with women who reportedly felt misled or abandoned. Again, the details were murky, but the timing was enough to rattle the fanbase. Had Amy, after everything she went through with Matt, stepped into another partnership where the foundations weren't as steady as they seemed? By this point, Amy's closest circle, friends who had watched her weather decades of ups and downs, were beginning to worry. Some urged her to be cautious, to take a harder look at Chris's past before fully binding her future to his. These were not casual warnings. They came from people who truly loved Amy and feared she might be repeating old patterns of ignoring red flags in the name of love. Fans, too, were starting to question whether Chris was truly the right man for her. Comment sections filled with speculation, some defending Chris as a man unfairly judged for his past, while others argued that where there's smoke, there's fire. For Amy, it became harder to block out the noise. The tension grew as she realized that her picture-perfect romance might be hiding shadows she could no longer ignore. And it was in those quiet moments, off camera, away from the spotlight, that Amy began to confront the uncomfortable truths. Did she really know Chris as well as she thought? Could she trust that his past wouldn't come back to haunt their future? These questions were not just about love. They were about survival, stability, and her ability to protect herself from another heartbreak. Behind the smiles, the Instagram posts, and the moments captured for Little People, Big World, Amy and Chris were facing challenges that many fans never saw coming. What started as small, private disagreements slowly began to spill into the public eye. Observant followers noticed subtle shifts, Amy's captions becoming shorter, her tone occasionally distant, and Chris seeming less present in moments where he once stood proudly at her side. For Amy, the core of her struggle was trust. After decades in a marriage where she often felt unheard and overshadowed by Matt Roloff, stepping into a new partnership meant carrying invisible scars. Even the happiest moments were occasionally clouded by the shadow of her past. And though Chris tried to reassure her, there were times when Amy couldn't help but wonder if old wounds were quietly reopening in her new relationship. The tension grew heavier when whispers about Chris's behavior began surfacing. Allegations, whether rooted in truth or rumor, suggested that Chris wasn't always the man fans believed him to be. Stories of questionable decisions, interactions that made Amy uncomfortable, and a side of him she hadn't seen during their courtship started to shake the very foundation of their bond. The emotional strain became undeniable. Amy, always open with her heart, found herself questioning whether love was enough to hold them together. Could she move forward when doubts gnawed at her peace of mind? Could Chris truly rise above the growing criticism and prove that he was the partner Amy deserved? It was a pivotal moment in their relationship, a test of resilience under the harsh spotlight of reality television and the even harsher glare of public judgment. And as fans speculated about every move, one question hung in the air. Could this love survive the pressure, or was it already beginning to crumble? The breaking point didn't arrive with a single explosive argument. Instead, it was the culmination of countless small moments, frustrations swept under the rug, whispered doubts, and the crushing weight of living under a microscope. For Amy and Chris, those words, "We can't live like this anymore," didn't come lightly. They were born out of exhaustion, heartbreak, and the realization that the life they had built together was no longer sustainable in its current form. Amy had spent years trying to balance her second chance at love with the lingering shadows of her past. Chris, meanwhile, struggled with being constantly compared to Matt, both by fans and, sometimes, even by Amy herself. The constant speculation about their relationship, every look dissected, every disagreement magnified, began to chip away at their peace. Even the happiest moments felt tainted by the knowledge that the world was always watching, always ready to judge. The decision to step back wasn't about lack of love, it was about survival. Both Amy and Chris recognized that the toxic dynamics swirling around them were poisoning the foundation they were trying so hard to protect. Fame had brought them opportunities, but it had also amplified their insecurities, magnified their struggles, and turned private wounds into public drama. When they said, "We can't live like this anymore," it wasn't an admission of defeat, it was a plea for a different path. It was the moment they realized that if they didn't set boundaries and create space away from the noise, they risked losing not only each other but themselves. The emotional fallout was heavy. Amy felt the sting of yet another relationship teetering on the edge, while Chris wrestled with guilt, questioning if he had failed her in some way. For their marriage, this breaking point became a crossroads. Would they allow the pressures of fame, unresolved tensions, and outside voices to tear them apart? Or could this drastic step become the beginning of true healing? As the news about Amy and Chris's struggles began to spread, the fan reactions were immediate and deeply divided. On one side, loyal supporters of Chris defended him, pointing out that every relationship has ups and downs. They argued that Amy herself admitted to struggling with trust after her divorce from Matt, and perhaps Chris was simply caught in the crossfire of old wounds that had never fully healed. To these fans, Chris wasn't the villain. He was a man trying to navigate life with a partner who carried a heavy emotional past. But on the other side, critics were far less forgiving. Some fans accused Chris of showing red flags for years, suggesting that his easygoing charm masked deeper issues. Others couldn't help but compare him directly to Matt Roloff, questioning whether Amy had unknowingly fallen into the same cycle she once fought so hard to escape. Did Amy repeat old mistakes? Became a common refrain across social media, with threads dissecting everything from Chris's body language on the show to his past business ventures. TLC's role in all of this only added fuel to the fire. For years, fans have accused the network of picking and choosing which aspects of the Roloffs' lives to show. Some wondered if producers had downplayed Chris's flaws to preserve the fairy tale narrative they wanted to sell. Others speculated that TLC might be deliberately amplifying the drama now to boost ratings, portraying Amy and Chris as the latest roller coaster couple to keep audiences hooked. The question of manipulation versus reality hung heavily over the debate. And then came the bigger question: what does all of this mean for Amy and Chris's storyline on Little People, Big World? Would TLC lean into the cracks, exposing the raw tensions that fans are buzzing about? Or would they quietly edit around the drama, focusing instead on lighter family moments and farm updates? Some fans felt Amy deserved a break from being the center of scandal after years of navigating heartbreak in front of the cameras. Others insisted that transparency was the only way forward. After all, reality TV should reflect reality, no matter how messy it gets. One thing was clear: whether fans defended Chris or condemned him, everyone agreed that Amy's happiness was at the heart of it all. The bigger picture wasn't just about a rocky marriage. It was about a woman who has lived her life in the spotlight for decades, once again facing the scrutiny of millions as she tries to hold onto the second chance at love she once believed in so deeply. Amy Roloff's journey has never been easy. From the heartbreak of her divorce with Matt Roloff to the joy of finding what she thought was a safe haven with Chris, her life has been a constant push between loss and hope. But with Chris's alleged dark past resurfacing and the shocking moment where Amy said, "We can't live like this anymore," fans are left with more questions than answers. Was this escape a turning point, Amy reclaiming her strength once again? Or was it simply the unraveling of yet another love story that started with so much promise? As the dust settles, one thing is certain: Amy's resilience has carried her through storms before, but this one feels different. Did she trade one kind of pain for another? And can Amy and Chris truly survive this test? Or is this the beginning of the end for their marriage? Amy Roloff's story reminds us that even when the cameras stop rolling, real life keeps moving, and not every chapter ends the way we expect. With that said, thank you for watching, and until next time.